The last time we talked about the church, the ancient church, the early church, and we usually call that ante Nicene. That means before the Council of Nicaea. And obviously, if that is before the Council of Nicaea, then today's session is Nicaea onwards. But not exactly Nicaea onwards, but there's a reason why Nicaea is such a watershed moment in church history. This section, we want to cover the triumph of Christianity, whether is it a triumph, whether is it a victory, or is it a failure, or is it a mixed bag, right? It's something for us to consider, and also then to consider similar situations in the world today, in our world today, and to see whether certain things are considered triumph or not, or a mixed bag, or how do we look at it. So 313 to 476. So we're going to cover in two parts. The first thing to cover is Rome, the Roman Empire. And the second part to cover is the church councils. The Roman Empire came to at least tolerate Christianity or liberate Christianity, ending the persecution, accepting it as a legal religion, legalizing Christianity from the year 313. The year 476 was the end of the Western Roman Empire. So this is the time period we want to talk about. The time period from the time the Roman Empire accepts Christianity as a legal religion to the end of the Western Roman Empire in the year 476. Okay? Yes? The persecution ended in 313 to the end of the Western Roman Empire. 476 is when the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Okay, so from the time the Roman Empire accepts Christianity as a legal religion to the time the whole thing collapses, right? The whole Western Roman Empire collapses. And then we're going to talk about the church councils as well after the break. So, okay, so with that as the introduction as to what we are doing today. All right. So what happened was that the Roman Empire became very large. Okay, it became really huge, and it is very hard to govern. Okay, it is very hard for one emperor to govern the whole Roman Empire. So therefore, they needed to split it up administratively. So the guy who was in control of really the whole empire was Diocletian. He was the emperor, Diocletian. And Diocletian says, I can't really govern the whole thing. So what he did was that he appointed Maximian as his co-emperor. So now we have two emperors. Maximian will be the emperor of the West, and Diocletian will be the emperor of the East. Okay, roughly speaking, the westward would be Latin speaking, roughly speaking. Okay, Latin and some barbarians. All right. Yeah, barbarians. Okay, in the north, west, and here would be roughly speaking Greek speaking. Does that make sense? All right. So there's a Latin world, Italy, right? West half of the Mediterranean Sea, and there is the Greek speaking world, the eastern part of the of the empire of the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, so the idea was that they will have the emperor is called Augustus, and under Augustus there's a junior emperor called Caesar. So there's a senior emperor and a junior emperor in each half. Okay, so the western half, the senior emperor is Maximian, and the junior emperor was Constantius. And in the east, the senior emperor was Diocletian, and the junior emperor was Galerius. So that was the idea. Each of them taking a quarter of the. So there's a whole Roman Empire, and then broken up into the western side and the eastern side. So there's a Western Emperor and an Eastern Emperor. And then within the West is divided into half, one ruled by the Emperor himself, the other one ruled by a junior Emperor. And on the east side, a Caesar, right? On the east side, there's an Augustus, and there is a Caesar as well. So that was the format. This is called the Tetrarchy, where we have 4 rulers. And that was the format that go for just about 30 years. Obviously, this is not going to be stable, right? Got too many chiefs, not enough Indians, isn't it? So you're really setting up for some kind of a civil war to happen within the Roman Empire. So Constantius, he gave way to his son Constantine. So the Constantine became the junior emperor in Britain, in Spain, and in France. Okay, is that okay? The yellow color one. That was Constantius territory, and he gave it to his son Constantine. And Maximian is the main emperor of the West. His son was Maxentius. All right. So the 2 sons fought a war, and Constantine won that war. So format is one thing. Absolute power is a different thing, right? Armies. So Constantine became the sole ruler of the West. On the east, there are Galerius and Diocletian also exited the scene. Diocletian actually retired, and in the east, it was a battle between Licinius and Maximinus, and Licinius won. So basically, in the west, the Latin-speaking world, it was Constantine, and the Greek-speaking world, it was Licinius. And together in 313, when in the same year, both Constantine and Licinius emerged the victors of both West and East, respectively. They came together in the city of Milan and jointly issued the Edict of Milan in the year 313 that ends the persecution of Christianity. All right, legalizing Christianity, returning confiscated property, all right, and so granting liberty. So then Constantine defeated Licinius in the year 324. So Constantine ended up as the sole emperor of the entire Roman Empire. But even he cannot run the whole empire, so eventually he has to appoint some junior Caesar as well. Okay, so that is the background. That is the political background. It was broken up into 4, and then it was remerged by Constantius' son Constantine. Right, he swept from Britain, from Spain, all the way to the other end. Okay. Any questions? Yeah. Why what? You see now? Okay, so the western half and the eastern half. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Constantine the Great. He rose to power in 306 as a junior Caesar, and he dies in the year 337. He reunified the Roman Empire in 324, and he founded Constantinople. So basically, he moved the the capital city, or rather, he moved his capital city to to yeah, modern day Istanbul, which he names it Constantinople after himself, Constantinople. So there's Rome and there is the New Rome. So these two become the major centers of the empire. In the west, Rome. In the east, New Rome, Constantinople. All right. After the fall of Constantinople, Moscow was declared as the third Rome, or was it St. Petersburg? Declared as the uh, third Rome after the fall of Constantinople. New Rome, Romanova, yeah, referring to Constantinople. So where the Eastern Emperor resides. So the Western Emperor is in Rome, the Eastern Emperor is in Constantinople. Right, in 330. So he supported the church by, of course, the most important thing, issuing the Edict of Milan to, together with Licinius, to end persecution of the Christians. And he convened the Council of Nicaea because he wanted to bring all the bishops together to come to an agreement on Christian doctrine. You see, Christianity never had time to go and discuss these kind of things. Of course, people write. The church fathers, Justin Martyr, and they right? But they were under persecution. So the Christian religion was very much distributed everywhere. And so they didn't have the time or the ability or the luxury to get all the leaders of the church to come together into one room to agree on anything. That right? You know what I mean? So there are a lot of outstanding doctrinal issues that needs to be sorted out. And so after 313, so Christians comes out in the open and more people become Christians. And so Christianity growing in the empire, and there's disagreement between them, and the disagreement is so severe that the emperor thought it might break up his empire. Right? So he thought to sponsor the trip of the bishops around the empire to come together to debate and to come to some conclusions, some agreement, which we're going to look at after the break. We'll look at all the councils after the break. Council of Nicaea 325, and there's imperial patronage. He made Bibles, 50 Bibles, according to record. He commissioned, and it's expensive affair. Perhaps some scholars think, and I think I agree, that the most important manuscript that we have of the New Testament today, complete set of the whole Bible, really, in the Septuagint and the Greek New Testament, Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus, it looks so expensive, and it looks so well written. It doesn't look like somebody sitting under persecution and commissioning this thing. It looks like it's commissioned by the emperor. So maybe those two manuscripts on which a lot of our New Testament is based on came from Constantine, who commissioned the compilation and the writing of the New Testament, making 50 copies. No, it'll be codexes. It's called Codex Sinaiticus. Codex. A codex is a book. Front and back. Paper haven't come from China yet. Okay. So they use their own papyrus, from which we get the word paper anyway. So then we were really now at the forefront. Christianity was at the forefront of the technology. Before that, it was scroll, and then um, what we do is that we do these horizontal strips, right? Because if it is vertical strips and horizontal strip, so we're able to put the two together so that we can write both front and back. Yeah. Previously in the scroll, they just write on one side, right? Then now, Christians kind of either invented or popularized the um, the codex, whereby we can now write on both the front side and the back side. We came on board with technology very early. P95, uh, which is uh, the earliest manuscript of the New Testament that we have, or from the Gospel of John, which is dated back to 125. That means just within 25, 30 years of the writing of the Gospel of John, we have a copy, a manuscript copy, just the size of a credit card, that is written on both sides, front and back. So we know that it came from a codex. It came from a book. So we came up with books really early, where other people were still using scrolls. Christians were already using books. P52, John 18, front and back. Pontius Pilate asked Jesus, "What is truth?" that is the passage that we found. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Christians were the popularizers of using books instead of scrolls. Granting privileges to clergy, especially. That's what he does. And Constantine's mom was very devout, and she fancies herself as a Christian archaeologist of sort. And so then she went all over the place looking for where Jesus could have been born in Bethlehem, where Jesus could have been crucified. And so a lot of the traditional sites of Christianity protected because of Constantine's mother. Right. The question is, does he have personal faith? Right? Or is it just political expediency? So personally, so he claims in his battle against Maxentius, in his effort to unify the West, okay, before he fought Licinius. So in his first battle, called the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, he claimed to see a vision of the cross, and so he made the cross his standard. Yeah, yeah. So he claimed to have a conversion experience or a vision of the cross, and then he thought that this cross is what is going to lead him to victory, and so he made it his banners, and then he won. So he won, and in 312, that is why that probably contributes to, in 313 he issued the Edict of Milan to legalize Christianity, but it's fought in the West. Yeah, it's in the West. Okay. So, but the thing is that he was only baptized on his deathbed in 337. So, yeah. So whether did he really have personal faith, we don't quite, we don't quite know. All right. Yeah. So that is but nonetheless, Constantine the Great um legalized Christianity and moved Christianity from the margins to now to the center of power. And this is why it's called a triumph of Christianity, right? The question is, will Christianity survive? Will Christianity flourish? And it's always under persecution. So it's Rome versus Christianity, right? Rome versus Christianity, and now Christianity won. Yeah. Okay. So with the legalization and also the ascendancy of Christianity in the Roman Empire. The Empress Dowager is Christian. Um, the emperor claims to be Christian, so Christianity kind of like become the default religion of the state. Not yet formally, that will be done but later by Theodosius, but now it's already kind of like very popular. And so there is the growth of the church structure, the ecclesiastical structure. The church structure at the very start of the faith is very dynamic, right? It is very dynamic. It is more charismatic. Prophets, apostles, people singing spiritual songs, right? Probably open worship. If you read 1 Corinthians 12 to 14, that kind of a thing. So over time, things get more calcified, or rather more structured. Maybe calcified is not right because there's still movement, but more structured. So we have elders and deacons. That is right there in the Bible. All right. So locally we have elders and deacons, and then in terms of either regionally or globally, there is the apostles and prophets, right? So apostles and prophets that travel, and the local elders and deacons that are there running the church. And then we have Ignatius saying that bishop is the leader of all the elders, right? So among all the elders, there is the bishop. So then by the time of Constantine, now it's time to institutionalize the church. And the empire divides itself along dioceses. That is the term, right? The dioceses. That's the term for it. Okay. So every city, what is a diocese? A diocese is a city and its surrounding towns. That's one diocese. Right. So KL to Klang Valley, there's like one diocese like that. Understand? And then the Kinta Valley, Ipoh, and then the Kinta Valley around it. So basically, it's a major city, and then towns that are satellite to that city. That is called a diocese. So then what we have is that we have elders, presbyters, running all these small town churches. All right. Okay. So we have elders running all the small town churches. So imagine Klang Valley. So the Klang Valley will have an elder, a presbyter, running PJ, okay, another one running Subang Jaya, another one running Klang, another one running, okay. And then we will have the bishop running Kuala Lumpur, where his cathedral is there in Kuala Lumpur. And then from there, he governs the entire Klang Valley churches. You can see why that is the case. You can see why that is that might happen even organically, right? Because all these little towns, they trade with the main city, okay? And clearly the guy in the city is more senior. He is the one that is probably the most educated, right? And so on and so forth. Okay, so the bishop governs the dioceses, and within the diocese, there's various parish churches, and each of these parish churches is run by an elder. Okay. And the thing is that then we got super giant cities, right? Like Rome. Rome, okay, which is a gigantic metropolis, all right? Alexandria, a gigantic metropolis. Antioch of Syria, a gigantic metropolis. We got Constantinople, also a gigantic metropolis, right? That has major cities in it, right? You know what I mean? That have made so the small town, there is the bigger cities, and then there is the metropolis. So the metropolis then is then governed by a metropolitan bishop and archbishop then, right? An archbishop governs a province, okay, presides over a province, not govern, presides over a province, and then the bishop governs the diocese. Yeah, there's a difference. So the bishop is the real big leader of he runs the show. The archbishop doesn't actually run the show as much, but that he presides over when all the bishops come together in his little province. Okay, yeah, and that resulted eventually in the development of the huge patriarchates. Okay, the patriarch of Rome, who's in the local Latin Papa, so Pope, right? And then there is the Papa of Rome, the Papa of Alexandria. So there's the Pope of Alexandria, Pope of Antioch, and so on and so forth. Later, Constantinople. And then Jerusalem, not politically significant, but because a sign of respect. So there is also a patriarch of Jerusalem. Later on, these five are called the Pentarchy. We have the Tetrarchy just now. Now we've got the Pentarchy. These five are the five major centers of Christianity. Rome, Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, Jerusalem. So the order of seniority is Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria. Yeah, like that. But each of them are kind of like independent area of influence. So they institutionalized the church. Yeah. Running it like the Roman Empire. Whatever the Roman Empire has. I mean, it makes sense if the if the government splits Subang Jaya away from MPPJ last time, right? Then there ought to be Subang Jaya is its own municipal. That since it has its own local government, that it also ought to have its own local church. Right. There is also the centralization of law, of church law and doctrine through the ecumenical councils. And the ecumenical council, that means they get all the bishops to come together and they make a ruling, a decision that is binding on the whole church. But because it has the power of the state behind it, all right, so they can really inflict real consequences on people who don't abide by what the church decides, like exile or worse. You know what I mean? So now there is the ability to dole out violence, right? And the lawyers here who will understand what is law. Law is basically the monopoly of the state to do violence. Yeah, there's no such thing as law without the ability to inflict violence. I can put a rule outside your house that says, right, take off your shoes before you come in. Robbers come in with parang. They don't take off their shoes. You say, hey, it says in front there, take off your shoes before you come in. Your rules is irrelevant if you can't enforce it. Right? So at the base of law is the ability to do violence. And if your law is to have, if there is such a thing as supremacy of law, right, that is in our Rukun Negara, then it must then be the state's ability to monopolize violence, that nobody else can do violence, right? Otherwise, then there's a parallel law. Of course, lah. But then how do you, then you need to have police, you need to have, you know what I mean? So if you want to, you don't believe in this thing, you come up with a heresy, okay, we are going to send you into exile. Right? How are we going to do that? We need armed escorts, right, to send you into exile. So by default, then church government become legally binding because now there is proper enforcement. So therefore, there is a development of canon law, ecclesiastical law. Right? Nowadays, people don't really care anymore because what can the Pope really do? Now he's more like a moral influence over the church. He can't confiscate people's property, proscribe. He can't burn people at the stake. He can't do all those things anymore, right? Try people for witchcraft. They can't do that kind of stuff anymore, right? So without that, now it's just moral influence. But back then, because now you have the backing of the Roman Empire, backing of the emperor, yeah, you can now have canon law. Yeah. Then we stone you to death, right? So we need to be able to stone you to death. But if we don't have the power to stone you to death, then what is the law, right? Correct? If you parking kena saman, but there's nothing the municipal can do to you other than issuing you a bigger saman because they're not in control of the police, they're not in control of the courts, then basically that saman you pay, don't pay, also doesn't make a difference because it's state, not federal, JPJ, not not related. So they can't impound your car. They can't do anything. They can't do anything, right? So is that even law? So that's the question. All right. So legal and doctrinal centralization. Now we can get the bishops from all over the empire to come together to have a meeting and to decide what is Christian doctrine. And so the empire and the church exist in a state of symbiosis. Symbiosis. All right. One God, one emperor. Wherever there is the bishop, there is the church, and then, and then so Theodosius the first made Nicene Christianity after the Council of Nicaea. Those who agree with the Council of Nicene, that is called Christianity. Those who are not against the Council of Nicaea, all right, that is cults. So Nicene Christianity became the state religion in 380 by the Emperor Theodosius, and bishops gained civil authority. Some of them get to settle cases, right? Especially when the empire couldn't provide proper magistrates, then people go to the church for adjudication. Right. So the growth of this church structure. So basically, money is pouring into the church. Power is pouring into the is being accrued into the church, and people are coming to the church, right? Because now it makes sense to be Christian. Now it's really advantageous. Previously, only real Christians will be Christians. Why would anyone be a fake Christian? You know what I mean? Why would anyone even be a nominal Christian? Right? Hardly any reason to be a nominal Christian because you can die one. It's a persecution, right? By Diocletian. So therefore, the church was so persecution was always seen as a purification of the church. So now but now there's no more persecution. Then any amal akal, anybody also want to become Christian. You know what I mean? Some genuine, some not so genuine, but it is mass conversion. And even if they were all genuine, how are you going to disciple them? Right? Let's just say in this city there are 700 Christians. All right, 700 Christians. Of the 700 Christians, maybe 30 leaders within the right. Who are qualified to train others, and then others are still in the different stages of being discipled. All of a sudden, 115,000 from within the city gets baptized. Okay, you're gonna disciple all of them, right? You can run this course forever, also you cannot disciple them, right? Cannot raise enough leaders. So there is a lot of, and so you start to build churches, simply build, right? Because you need to have meeting places for the whole city, and anyone who can basically read or write, few months training, make a priest, right? So you got no choice, right? Got that. And also now, if you get to become a priest, or now you get to become a presbyter or a bishop, right? Then there's power, there's influence, there's money. So everybody wants to be bishop now. Okay, it becomes a very political thing because now it's also being seen as a path to actual political power, right? So some starts with politics, and become bishops. Some starts as bishops and become politicians. So it's a marriage of of symbiosis of empire and and church, of church and state. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of money around. People donate. Constantine himself donates money to the church. Yeah, tithing grows. Um, Prestige, right? So people have those who are more spiritually inclined, they have a response, and the church and some of these response is what is now known as early monasticism. So this is the beginning of the monastic movement. People become monks because they're against the church wealth, against the church worldliness, right? You go to the sermon becomes more watered down because now there's some huge masses to to accommodate, and then anyone also come and become a preacher now without proper training. And so against this backdrop of the institutionalization of the church, of the newfound wealth and position and what they see as worldliness, what many see as worldliness, there's a pushback. So one of those who pioneer even before Constantine, all right, his name was Anthony the Great. So he's a real pioneer. Well, while things were still bad, he was already starting to do it. He is an Egyptian hermit. He was converted, and when he heard the sermon. He heard the sermon that says, the preacher say, um, if you want to follow me, sell all that you have, give it to the poor, right, and come and follow me. So he did exactly that. He was a rich man, all right. He sold everything, retained some to support his sister, okay, and then gave everything to the poor, and he ran into the desert, into the Egyptian desert. So he was the original desert father. He lives there as a solitary monk. But because of the people just think he's crazy lah. This guy run to the desert. But when Christianity become the faith of the state, then worldliness. So those people who are more spiritually inclined, looking for spiritual reality, so they flocked to Anthony the Great. So they went to the wilderness to look for him. They went to the desert to look for him because he's the pioneer. So he has his own camp, his own tent, and people will encamp around him. Right? They also don't want to disturb him too much. But when there are too many people around him, then he run away at night to look for a new spot. And then the next morning, people, hey, where's the fella? I think the fella went there. They will move and they'll follow him wherever he goes. So they all become individual solitary hermits. Okay? Anthony the Great. Then Pachomius, he says that no, the model of this solitary monk is wrong because, yeah, patriarchal sees. Oh, so popes, there are 5 popes: Rome, Constantinople, Antioch, Alexandria, Jerusalem. The patriarch is the pope. Sees is his realm, his yeah. His office lah. Okay. So Anthony the Great, okay. Okay. Then Pachomius, he says that is not the way to do the monastic movement. After all, the fruit of the spirit, love, joy, peace, all right. If say patience. Okay. You a solitary hermit, with whom do you practice patience? Okay. So you cannot, all these attributes that we want to pursue are actually attributes that must be pursued in community. So he started the monastic community, the monastery. So the idea of monastery came from Pachomius. So Anthony the Great, he started the monastic movement, but then Pachomius started the monastery, and he becomes the abbot of his monastery, and he is very uh, popular, and he is a very good organizer. So very soon he started many monasteries all over the desert. And Basil of Caesarea, he came up with rules, okay, for what a monk should do, and these rules are still followed today by monks, Christian monks. So the legacy is that now martyrdom is spiritualized. This is called white martyrdom. There's the actual physical martyrdom. So people were yearning for those days where Christian people were yearning for the good old days of martyrdom. Basically, they consider that to be pure Christianity, right? Christ died on the cross. All the apostles died terrible deaths. All right, the Christianity from start to finish has always been a persecuted faith. All right, has never been the faith of the empire. We have always been in minority. So now martyrdom become a spiritual thing instead of a physical thing. There's nobody is physical. So they're all the self-inflicted martyrdom. Okay. So the word cross no longer apply to Christians in the physical sense. Now the word cross is only spiritual. Does that make sense? So today when we talk about taking the cross, taking up your cross, right? We only ever mean it spiritually. Correct? But before Constantine, it is both spiritual and also literal, physical cross. That was right. You understand? Yeah, but it is still spiritual in the sense that it is that nobody is really going to get crucified, right? So crucifixion was a form of capital punishment, right? It's by electric chair or noose, right? Hanging, death by hanging, or death by crucifixion. So so now martyrdom, the cross, is entirely 100% just spiritual, and it is a way to live countercultural. Okay, so they see that the church has become too worldly, and so these people who sees that the church has become too worldly has decided to run away to these monasteries to live the simple, chastened life. And with the growth of the monastery comes also the growth of education. Like all right, monasteries produce monks who are literate. Their job it is to write and to copy, right? So they kept our scriptures alive, really, and they kept Christian writings alive. Without those monks who spent all that time copying manuscripts, we wouldn't have what we have today. They did a lot of charity because many of them were rich people and they sold everything and become monks. So they have a lot of credibility. So when a rich person wants to donate money and who to entrust this money to, if you entrust it to the bishop going to makan the money, right? Okay, because he's a politician. That become the imperial church. So many of them would give it to the monastery to distribute. So therefore, the monastery also become the center for charity and the center of missionary to send missionaries out, right? Because otherwise, if you are the bishop there, nice sitting there, right, or you are some priest on the way up to wanting to become a presbyter, a bishop, why would you suddenly want to go don't know where to become missionary, right? Stay here to rise up to rise up in your ranks, right? To climb the ladder, to climb the ecclesiastical ladder. So these monks were not interested in the ecclesiastical ladder, and so they were free to just become missionaries. So these early monks eventually almost all the important priests and bishops eventually were monks. Okay, in order to become one of these guys, you have to first become a monk. Yeah, and that is kind of like a tradition that is still quite well preserved today, lah. Any question? So many of them decides to, many of these churches who yearns for authenticity, who yearns for spiritual revitalization. Not every church is corrupt. Not, you know. So there are people who are Christians because they're Christians, and so when they want to um, elect a bishop, all right, or to ordain to appoint a bishop, um, they look for a monk lah. The Catholic Church. Yeah, many of them come from a monastic order. Many of them come. Um, Pope Francis is a Jesuit, right? So yeah, yeah. Uh, in fact, there was this guy. He's a monk, hides in a monastery, and he has a very good reputation. And he was said to have healing powers. All right. And so the church wanted him to be their bishop. And so they tricked him to come to the city, to come out from the desert into the city to heal somebody. So when he shows up in the cathedral, they kidnapped him, the church, and imprisoned him until he agreed to be their bishop. You know, Pope Benedict is the second pope who ever resigned. Yeah, yeah. All popes become popes until they die, right? So Pope Benedict was only the second pope to ever resign. The first pope was who ever resigned was a monk. So what happened was that the old pope died, and the college of cardinals came together to elect a new pope, and they went on for years without coming into agreement of who the next pope will be. So this monk shows up and said that you need to appoint a pope or the wrath of God will be on you, all right, for not being obedient. So then they kidnapped him and made him pope. Then he became pope so reluctantly. Then he became pope for a while. Then he asked his advisors, the cardinals, "Hey, as a pope, I can do whatever I want, right? You can do whatever I want, including resigning." So yeah, I guess so he resigned and went back to become a monk. So they are really genuine, holy people, and that's the reason why they became monks in the first place. Today, maybe among us Protestants, evangelicals especially, right? The idea of monks, and we who come from whether Chinese background, Hindu background, or whatever background, all right, monks, it has a certain connotation. But in its inception, the reason was it's a revival movement. It was a church revival movement. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the monastic movement happens more first in Egypt because there was a desert there, right? Couldn't have happened in France. Yeah, man. So they're just all there battling demons. Yeah, battling the demons. They wrote. Yeah, that they had this battling demons. Yeah, that these people who they want to restrict themselves because they want to really restrict themselves. There are these guys called the pillar monks, whereby these broken Roman columns, all right, they would climb up the column and stay there to restrict the movement. Right, one guy decided to never sit down, but only stand inside a cave. Eventually, had some kidney failure or something like that. Yeah. Because there was no more real martyrdom. So they wanted to live the martyr's life, right? They became Christian, believing that they will be martyred anyways. Right? And then when, no more martyrdom. I believe Anthony the Great was, because he was still during a time where Christianity, he became a monk before the Edict of Milan, right? One time they heard that there's going to be persecution. So he showed up. He came out twice from the desert. One time, he went out to Alexandria believing that there would be persecution because he wanted to be martyred. Then he was disappointed. Uh, it didn't happen, so he went back to the desert. Yeah, become martyrs. Well, yeah, something like that. Because Christianity for 300 years was 250, 300 years, right? Was considered it's a persecuted faith, right? So that is the DNA of the church. The church has not known anything other than persecution for 200 over years. Yeah. All right. So politically, the empire still had to be divided into the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire with two capital cities. The Western Roman Empire, the capital city is Rome, of course, the Latin speaking world. Um, and the Eastern Roman Empire, the capital city is the New Rome, Constantinople, right? The more of the Greek speaking world type. Okay. Not exactly, but something like that lah. Yeah. They had to do it this way lah. Otherwise, it's very difficult how to govern this thing. um, so then the western half of the Roman Empire collapsed in 476. All right. So the Roman Empire, the western half, uh, always under barbarian pressures from the Germanic tribes. Okay, always kena from the Germanic tribes. The Eastern Roman Empire, the Persians, the Parthians here, yeah, that is the frontier. This was not quite a problem for the Eastern Roman Empire at all. So they are quite stable. They only got overrun when the Muslims conquered. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so Eastern Roman Empire stable, Western Roman Empire not stable, also poorer lah, also poorer. A lot of barbarian tribes also lah. Very hard to civilize these people. Okay, so factors internal decay. Um, too many of them were too many of the elites, the highly educated and powerful elites died of lead poisoning because they added lead into their wine. They thought it's makes the wine stronger. They thought, all right. So it was a popular thing to mix lead into their wine, and so many of them died of lead poisoning. Many of us are also stunted by lead poisoning when petrol was still leaded. Okay. Probably that's where the growth of a lot of diseases because of lead in the environment. Yeah. So internal decay, morality. I think it is almost like America right now, the West right now, right? Nobody is really threatening the West militarily or anything like that. It is just kind of like the civilization just uh, crumbles under its own weight, civilizationally. Okay. Yeah. Civilizationally, there's why even bother anymore kind of a thing. All right. Economic instability, of course, and military weakness. Actually, this military weakness is so because people just bought up already lah. People just bought up because when there isn't when you're a superpower for a long time, right? You kind of lose your sense of purpose, because you're no longer struggling for the basic things. When you're no longer struggling for the basic things, yeah, you had a golden age, and then people just become wealthy. Who wants to be a soldier, right? So in 410, Rome was sacked by Alaric and the Visigoths. That was shocking. That was shocking. Rome itself was sacked. Plunder, rape, Roman women, Roman men enslaved. All right. Yeah, some Germanic tribe. Some Germanic tribe. Yeah. Germanic. 455, Rome was sacked by the Vandals. The word Vandals, which gives name to the word vandalism, right? By the Vandals. And eventually, 476, the last Western Roman Empire emperor was deposed, and that is the end of the Western Roman Empire altogether. It was overrun by barbarians. Yeah. And the barbarians, they can't rule an empire. They can rule city states. You know, they can rule empires. To rule empire require a lot of sophistication, which they didn't have. So that begins the Dark Ages, lah. Right, for 1,000 years, people lost the ability to build sewer system. They just got this massive loss of knowledge as well. Okay, so with the collapse of civil authority, okay, so how people's lives still need to go on, right? So the only recognizable authority left was the church. So the church basically took over the government, right? Because with the collapse of the empire of civil government, who's going to run the show? So the local bishops ran the show, from soup kitchens to running the courts to solving disputes to preparing defenses. If you're a parish priest, you need to start to figure out how to set up defenses for your little town, little village, whatever. So the church provides continuity, stability, provides moral authority, and appeal to the invaders, to the barbarians, to not inflict too much harm, or something, to be restrained, and try to convert the barbarians as well, which succeeded. Right? So, and there's this growing divide between the East and the West, because the Eastern church is still an imperial church, right? And the Western church is no longer an imperial church. And if you look at the map, then Constantinople is here. Remember the five big cities, the five patriarchal sees, all right? Constantinople is here. Antioch is here. Antioch is here, right? Jerusalem is here. Alexandria is here, right? So four of the five cities is in the east. Only one city is in the west. Only the Pope of Rome, right? The Bishop of Rome is. So therefore, the Roman Catholic Church in the west. Yeah, because it's the only taiko here. Whereas here there's four of them. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that is how the the seats of the Roman Catholic Church, because there's only one big guy there in Rome. Yeah. Eastern Orthodox eventually only covers the Constantinople. All these guys, they broke away. They broke away. Yeah. They broke away. Yes. Alexandria in Egypt. So there is still there's still the Pope of Alexandria, the Patriarch of Alexandria. He is basically the Coptic Church leader. Yeah, we'll take a look at them. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Constantinople is the leader of the Eastern Orthodox Church, and the Greek Orthodox Church is part of the Eastern Orthodox Church. All right. So yeah. So we need church leaders to help transition, okay, from the from this Nicene type church to after the fall of the Roman Empire, right? We need so the theologian that really helped the Western church to survive theologically, really, is Augustine of Hippo. He converted after reading Romans 13, verse 13 to 14 about sin, right? About how you're a terrible sinner. So he was morally flexible person. All right. He likes to indulge in all kinds of worldly pleasures. And so when he read, his mother was Christian, Monica, who has tried her best to pray for him and to but never succeeding. Once he was in the garden and he heard a voice, and that voice led him to read Romans chapter 13, verses 13 and 14. That says, "Let us walk properly as in the daytime, not in orgies and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and sensuality, not in quarreling and jealousy." And he's a professional in these vices. But put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desire. So it was an immediate conversion for him. He also heard the preaching of Ambrose of Milan, a prominent monk who grew up to become the Bishop of Milan. And then he himself later became the Bishop of Hippo Regius in North Africa from 396 to 430. So he's a Latin speaking guy, a Latin speaking professor. He wrote two very important works, Confessions of Augustine, which is his spiritual autobiography, and he wrote The City of God. Remember, in 410 there was the sack of Rome by Alaric, right? So Rome was considered the eternal capital, right? 410, Rome sacked by Alaric and the Visigoths. So that was a earth-shattering event because we're talking about the Roman Empire. When has Rome ever been sacked? And so this is kind of like really apocalyptic. It was a really apocalyptic moment for the Roman Empire. And so he wrote The City of God to talk about the two cities. There is God's city and there is the human city. Yeah, how to be God's city while living in the human city. Yeah, so it's a Christian philosophy in response to the sack of Rome. So the tale of two cities kind of a thing, right? A lot of what we think right now about how to be a pilgrim, okay, pilgrim on the narrow road, traces its roots to Augustine of Hippo. He made many contributions to theology on the doctrine of original sin, on the doctrine of predestination, because he was such a sinner. If God never predestined you to salvation, you'll never be saved, lah. All right, so he fought very hard against Pelagius, who believed that basically salvation by works. So he said that no, it's by faith, by grace through faith. The church as the pilgrim city of God amidst the earthly human city, and with Augustine of Hippo and the sack of and the decline of the Western Roman Empire, we now transition into the medieval era, where it's all run by local prince, right? Right, the governments are local princes. So the Western Roman Empire is no longer so the Western Church is no longer tied to the empire, right? So now they need to negotiate with the local prince of the whatever city states, right? We enter into the medieval Knights Templar era. Okay, let's take a 10 minutes break. Hippo means horse. North Africa. Yeah, so it's in the west. Yeah. Where the barbarian pirates are, right? Okay. Here, Augustine. Augustine. Okay. All right. Let's take a 10 minutes break. Now it's 10:40. Let's come back 10:50. Church councils. The first council that the church had as a result of now it becomes a legalized religion, and later in 380 the state religion. We need to now settle our doctrines, right? We need to settle our doctrines. So the controversy was started by a guy by the name of Arius. Arius, he was a presbyter in Alexandria. He's one of the small town leader, right, elder in Alexandria, and he argues that Jesus is of a different essence from the Father, or substance, different essence from the Father. This is called heterousios. Ousios means nature, essence, substance. Hetero means different. That the Son is heterousios from the Father. The Son is of a different essence from the Father. The Father's essence is God. The Son's essence is not God. So Jesus is not God. So that is his argument. All right. Jesus is maybe the greatest creature that God has ever made. All right. So that was a controversy. So verses like the Father is greater than I, and all those things comes, right? There are modern Arians today. The Jehovah's Witnesses would be modern Arians today who believe that God created the Son. Okay? That is why you have this term today in Christianity that the Son is begotten, not made, right? So begotten, not made, not a creature. The Son is not a creature. That is today. So that Arian controversy is threatening to tear the church apart into two halves, into those who say that the Son is of the same essence or nature with the Father, versus Arians who say that the Son is of a different essence from the Father. So it is unclear who would win the debate. So Constantine at first he ignores it and say like this is such a minute thing, and the difference was really so. Arian says heterousios, right? Heterousios. Okay. Athanasius, he says the Son is of the same nature as the Father. So this is Arius. Then Athanasius, his opponent, who at the time was just a deacon, so it was really junior. So it's really a miracle that he won the debate. Athanasius, or else we'll all be Jehovah's Witnesses today. I'm serious. If Athanasius didn't win, the small little deacon, all right, arguing against his elder. And Athanasius was an elder, was a presbyter. Yeah. Athanasius was a deacon. If Athanasius lost the debate because Arius put rank or whatever, today we'll all be Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah. Athanasius, he says, homo ousios. Same nature with the Father, all right? Same essence with the Father. Then other church leaders say, why can't we compromise? All right? Okay. So what we compromise is called semi-Arianism. Okay. So this Arianism, semi-Arianism is homoi ousios, meaning similar, of a similar essence or similar substance. All right. Literally, the church was being torn apart by an eye, by iota. Whether is the son homoousios with the father or homoousios with the father or completely different heteroousios. So Aries insists that the son is of a different nature from the father. Athanasius insisted that the son is of the same nature with the father. There are others who try to say, why don't we compromise and say that it's of the similar nature with the father. So when Constantine caught wind of the debate, he says, you guys are arguing over an iota. And this iota is going to tear my hard won empire apart asunder. Right? So this is absolute nonsense. He said nobody can discuss this anymore. He put a ban on it, but he couldn't because the controversy has reached grassroots. People in the markets were asking, is Jesus of the same nature, the father of a different nature from the father? The aunties at the market were talking about it. So he thought, okay, he convened a council at the city of Nicaea, and he invited the bishops from all over the empire to come to have the first ecumenical council in the church history. The word ecumenical means it means the whole world, right? It means whole world kind of a thing. All inhabited earth, or rather his empire lah, to come. And so they had a debate. Now, before they started the debate, they needed to lay down the ground rules. The debate is Jesus of the same nature with the Father, or is he of a different nature from the Father, or a similar nature from the Father? One of the things that they minuted down in the minutes of the proceeding was the 27 books of the New Testament and the 39 books of the Old Testament. One of the things that were minuted in the minutes of meeting of the proceedings is the list of the New Testament books and the list of the Old Testament books. 39 books of the Old Testament and the 27 books of the New Testament. Now, it is the first complete listing of the Old Testament and New Testament that is binding to the whole empire church, right? So many people consider Christianity to really begin in 325, the Nicene Christianity. Otherwise, it could have been Arian Christianity, right? So the form of Christianity that we have, some argue, starts in 325. And our Bible, the canon, starts in 325. I disagree. Reason because they came together not to debate what is Bible. They came to debate who is Jesus, right? But they needed some ground rules, like what writings can we appeal to ground our arguments. You know, you cannot just from anything argue, right? So you have to have some boundary, and the boundary is what is the books that you can appeal to form your argument. And so very uncontroversially, right? They listed the 39 books of the Old Testament and the 27 books of the New Testament. Meaning to say, way before 325, the church has already agreed that this is the Bible, while it was still under persecution. Meaning to say, while it was still not, so there's no centralized control over what is the Bible. There are a bit of discussion over one or two books, Shepherd of Hermas, First Clement, but those didn't receive universal Catholic, right? The word Catholic means universal, didn't receive Catholic appeal. So these 27 books of the New Testament was just listed very uncontroversially so that the council can proceed to talk about the issue of the day. You see, so no, I disagree that the canon was formalized in 325 by virtue of it being minuted down, all right? But it is not to say that before that we didn't have the Bible. The canon means the boundary of the Word of God. The word canon means ruler, yardstick, the yardstick. Okay. And so Arius argues, Athanasius argues back, and at the end, most of the church uh, 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 bishops agreed with Athanasius. Of course, with a little bit of pressure from the emperor. Okay, with a hint from the emperor of which side you should take. So, but by and large, they make their own independent decisions. So, Athanasius won. Arius was exiled, was sent to exile, was deposed and sent to exile. And that marks the beginning of conciliar Christianity. That means defining what is Christianity by councils. Okay. And the product of the Council of Nicaea is the Nicene Creed. But this is the original Nicene Creed of the 325, not the Nicene Creed that is read today. Is different. The original Nicene Creed of 325, but the purpose of that original Nicene Creed was to say that Jesus is of the same substance with the Father. Okay? Yes? So the Son of God, God the Son, is of the same substance with the Father, correct? Yeah. God the Son, the Son, the Son, the Logos. In the beginning was the Word. Before the incarnation, in the beginning was the Word. So that word, the Logos, the Word, the Son, right, is of the same nature with the Father. The nature, the essence, the substance is God. God is a substance, right? Yeah. Not yet, ma. Only in the incarnation, ma. Yeah. Yeah, that Jesus, that means the Son is begotten, not made. Yeah, that is the language, begotten, not made. Yeah, begotten, not made. All right. So homoousios one. All right. But then there was a problem. The problem was that the term that they use, all right, is hypostasis. Hypostasis. That is the Greek word, hypostasis. To mean, modern translation of this word would be person. The person, all right, 3 persons of the Trinity. That means the Trinity, God is one God with 3 hypostasis. Okay, 3 hypostasis, 3 persons. Yeah, but the word "po" means under, right? Yeah, below, under, and stasis means something like support or yeah, okay, yeah, hypostasis, under, support. So what happened was that the Latin word for ousios, okay, was substantia. This is Greek. This is Latin. Okay, substantia, substance, right? But if you transliterate substantia into Greek, it is hypostasis. You understand? Sub, under, stantia, support. So the Latin word substance is also hypostasis.
But hypostasis in the Greek means person, not essence. All right. Now, the guys who wrote the 325 Nicene Creed, they were from the West. There were Latin native speakers who knew Greek. You understand? Okay. They were not native Greek speakers. They were Western Latin speakers who also knew Greek as a second language. So what happened was that they thought that hypostasis and ousios is identical. So they wrote into their creed, in the Nicene Creed, that anyone who says that Jesus is of a different ousios or a different hypostasis should be condemned. That Jesus is of a different ousios and a different hypostasis from the Father is to be condemned. So basically they're saying anyone who say that Jesus is not of the same essence or not the same person as the Father is to be condemned. Is Jesus the same person as the Father? No, right? So they made a mistake. They made a mistake because they wanted to say anyone who say of a different ousios, of a different substantia in the Latin. Substantia, when you transliterate it into Greek, is hypostasis. So what happened is that the Westerners, the Latin speakers, thought that ousios and hypostasis are synonymous. So anyone who says that Jesus is of a different ousios or a different hypostasis from the Father is to be condemned. All right, are heretics. But the native speakers in the East, all right, they use hypostasis to mean person, not to mean substance. So in actual Greek, there is a difference between hypostasis and ousios. It's not the same thing. But then the 325 Creed made it synonymous. So that caused a big confusion in the Eastern Church. Right? Why does the creed come out like that? And so then they needed to have a second meeting to fix the bug. All right. So about 50 over years later, in Constantinople, they have another meeting in 381 to fix this problem. Now, one problem was that Arianism crept back. Athanasius himself was exiled. Politics. All right. So sometimes it really depends on who's the emperor. Maybe the emperor is Arian. You know, if the emperor accepts Arian theology, then you're Arian, lah. You know what I mean? So local politics as well. Okay. Imperial politics. A lot of things happen. So end up in Athanasius being exiled and Arianism on the rise again. So they needed to have another meeting to really stamp out Arianism once and for all. And if in 325, people will deny the divinity of Christ. Now we've got people who deny the divinity of the Holy Spirit. You don't have to remember the name Pneumato-Marcionism. You don't have to really know that. Okay, but there are people who deny the divinity of the Holy Spirit. So we needed another council. Theodosius, who is thoroughly Nicene, right? He's the one who proclaimed Nicene Christianity the year before in 380 as the official religion of the state. He wants to stamp out Arianism, okay? Because he believes in the Nicene formula that Jesus is of the same nature with the Father. So in order to cement that, he got all the bishops to come back, right? The next generation of the bishop to come back to talk about it. So it was led by the Cappadocian fathers, Gregory Nazianzus, Basil the Great, and that three group. They are like the three guys. These three guys are like the best of friends. Maybe they did form six form together or something. They did form six together. They're really great friends. So they knew both Greek and Latin equally. So they were able to explain to everybody why there was this mistake of hypostasis and ousios. That was not the original intention of the writers. The original intention of writers were Latin speakers, Okay, were native Latin speakers writing in Greek, so they made a mistake. So now it's time to fix the mistake, and now it's time to also to affirm the divinity of the Holy Spirit. So we end up with what is the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, right? So the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed is what the Nicene Creed is what we call the Nicene Creed today. So the Nicene Creed that is read by churches today, all right, is not the original Nicene Creed of 325. It is the updated version of 381. All right, also known as the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. Nobody wants to say that, so we just call it the Nicene Creed. Cappadocian, they're from this place in Turkey. Cappadocia. Huh? Theodosius was the emperor. Only the emperor can call for such a council, right? Who has the money to sponsor everybody to come? Yeah. And then if they agree, then what happens? Who's gonna enforce? Right. So the Council of Constantinople really helped us Christians to come up with a universal creed for everyone. What about us, brethren? Do we subscribe to that? No, we don't. Yeah, we exist. We say we are Bible only. The Nicene Creed is not the Bible. All right, it has no relevance to us. Yes, heresy is heresy, but formularies, we don't do formulas. I do. For example, it says that God of God, light of light. It says true God from true God, true light from true light. That the Son is eternally begotten of the Father. That means the Father eternally begets the Son, and the Son is eternally begotten from the Father. And okay, disagreement is a too strong a word. Okay, He is begotten of the Father. Okay, eternally begotten the Father. Now, disagreement is too strong. Let me internet. That's not what I mean. Okay, I do not mean reject or deny. I mean that it is something that I don't affirm. Not affirming is quite different from opposing. Yeah, opposing means that I know it's wrong. All right. Not affirming means I do not know whether it's right. To say that the Son is eternally begotten of the Father, that means the Son is eternally subordinated to the Father. I am not an eternal subordination guy. That I think that the Son voluntarily subordinated himself to the Father. Yeah, but that is not an eternal subordination. That's an economic subordination. There's a difference between God in his eternal self, right? And God in his economy, in his doing things. That means God without the universe, God as just God. Is there a hierarchy within the Godhead? I say no, I say they're co-equal, co-eternal, co-everything. But in the carrying out of the economy of God, in the carrying out of God's plan, all right, there's an order. It is the Father's will. It is the Son who accomplishes the will. It is the Holy Spirit that communicates the benefit of what Christ has accomplished, right? So that one, yes. Then in that case, then the Son is subordinated to the Father, not out of compulsion, but out of voluntarily so, in order to have order within the Godhead, all right? And the Spirit, that's what the Spirit does. So then this will have implication on the family, because the head of the woman is the husband, the head of the man is Christ, the head of Christ is God. So then the relationship between the husband and wife is like the relationship between the Father and Christ, right? So if it is eternal subordination, then we are saying that the woman is subordinated to the man by nature. It is not an economic arrangement. Women are just not equal. Women are just not equal to men. So, but no, we want to say no, men and women are ontologically equal, but for the sake of the economy of the household economics, there is an order. There's an order. Somebody has to make the call. Right? So I am for ontological equality, economic subordination. Yeah. But you say eternally begotten, right? Right? Okay, then is the son eternally subordinated to the father? That is a big question. No, I absolutely would not say something like that. Yeah. but it can be true. So this is a theological debate, right? It could be true, but by affirming that the son is eternally begotten of father, and everyone else who cannot affirm are heretics, I cannot go there. So my problem is that I cannot go, all right, to where people say, I have not come to the place where I can affirm that the son is eternally begotten of the father. Okay, I think some other thing is going on. All right, maybe you're right, maybe you're not right. I need to investigate. The idea that I need to investigate already brand you as a heretic. That one I cannot accept. Yeah. So that is, so I do not reject the Nicene Creed. All right, I just that I cannot affirm. And for brethren, it is okay because we throw away all the creeds and let's start afresh from the Bible. The Bible is the word of God. Why would the creed be binding? So we give it the benefit of the doubt, but it can be doubted. Understand? The benefit of the doubt is that it has survived for 1,000 over years, stable. All right. So chances are it is consistent with scripture, the Nicene Creed. But the moment it is not consistent with scripture, we throw away the creed, not scripture. Right. So we tentatively hold it. Right. You can do that. But even for me, I don't tentatively hold to it because I haven't come to a place whereby I will say that anyone who doesn't affirm every word of this creed shall be treated as a heretic. I cannot go there. Yeah. I would say even when it comes to a point where I affirm and it's possible, where I affirm the eternal generation of the Son, okay, I may still not want to say that if you cannot affirm it together with me, you are a heretic. So I'm not going to go there. I think this is the main one. Yeah. And that's the point of the Nicene Creed anyways, to say that Jesus is begotten, not made. Yeah. All right. So that's the first council of Constantinople. That's the second council, right? Yeah, it's the second council. The first council was Nicaea. The second council was at Constantinople. It's called the first council of Constantinople because there's a second one that follows. All right. Then the third council that the church came together was 50 years later. So every 50 years they have this council, at the Council of Ephesus. What happened was that Nestorius shows up, and Nestorius of Constantinople, so he's a big guy, right? He's one of the patriarchs. So he says that Jesus is actually, there are two persons. There is the human Jesus and there's a divine Jesus who shares a face. Okay. So by saying person, there are two persons with Jesus Christ. There is the human person of Jesus and there's the divine person of Jesus. Right? So the human person of Jesus will have the human will, human thoughts, human whatever. And the divine person of Jesus will have the divine will, divine thoughts, divine whatever. Right? So Jesus is not a unified person. He's two persons sharing the same prosopon. sharing the same face. So this is called prosopic union. The word prosopon means face. Okay, it's a union that share the same face, but they're actually really two persons united in Christ. So therefore, that which Mary gave birth to is not God. That which Mary gave birth to is only Christ. So he objects to calling Mary the Theotokos, the mother of God or the God bearer, and prefers to call Mary the mother of Christ or the bearer of Christ, Christotokos. Mary is the mother of God, lah. Right? No, not her DNA, because the person that she gives birth to is the Son of God. The person, the person, the personality, right? The mind, the emotion, the will, right? The spirit, that which is given birth by Mary is the Son of God, who is God. So she gave birth to the person that she gave birth to is God. So she's the mother of God, not just the mother of Christ. So by downgrading to mother of Christ, what Nestorius is saying, or whether Nestorius himself says such thing, hard to know. What Nestorianism, okay, the system that's named after him, there's some debate about what Nestorius actually believe and what people slander him to say he believes in. All right. So Nestorianism would say that Mary was only responsible to give birth to the human Jesus. Yeah. True. Yeah. Yeah. So this statement, okay, becomes the fountainhead of what eventually develops of this high Mariology that is observed by the Imperial Church of the West or the East, by the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox. Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox. This is before the church split into half, right? So that means they're all on board with this. You understand? They were all on board with this. Yeah, of this language of Mary as the mother of God, and they would say that like every week, right? So Mary, the mother of God, Mary, the mother of God, Mary, the mother of God. Eventually, the focus is become less on the identity of the person whom Mary mothered, right? And the focus then shifted to the mother herself. Yeah. But theologically, Mary is the mother of God, not just the mother of Christ. This one I affirm wholeheartedly. And anyone deny, heretic. this one I'm clear. All right, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I feel that Jesus is God, not just the human side of Jesus, not just the divine side of Jesus is God. Not just the divine nature of Jesus is divine, that the person Jesus is divine. That the whole person is divine. That Jesus is a divine person. Yeah, the person is the second person of the Trinity, right? Person is a second person of the Trinity who became incarnated. Is still the second person of the Trinity. Yeah, there isn't another person that get tagged on to God the Son, who's Christ the Son of David. Yeah. Yeah. So then we come to the mystery of the person of Christ, right? How do we square the circle or something, right? I have a method, all right. Divine subconscious model, but there's other models to talk about. All right. So his opponent was Alexandria. Right? These two guys are always at odds. Constantinople versus Alexandria. But Constantinople versus Antioch at first. Constantinople versus Antioch, and then Alexandria versus Antioch. That's the oldest rivalry, you know. Alexandria versus Antioch is a super old rivalry, all right? Because Antioch say, you know, we are like Barnabas and Paul, who are you, right? Okay, so Alexandria became a huge, very early, right? Constantinople is a Johnny come lately guy started by Constantine, right? But because the emperor is there, so it becomes important, right? So Cyril of Alexandria, he says, no, Mary is the Theotokos. She is the mother of God. So then, that which Mary gave birth to, was it Moses? Which Mary gave birth to was the Son of God. So then, okay, what about the humanity and the divinity then? For Nestorian, it is basically two persons. There is a human person and there's a divine person, right? But for Cyril of Alexandria, it's a hypostatic union. Remember the word hypostasis, all right? So they don't share the same face. There's the two hypostases sharing one prosopon. It is two ousias, all right, sharing one hypostasis. It's a hypostatic union. So this one person has two natures. And these two natures is without division, without confusion. Okay? One person that is Jesus Christ, but he has two natures. So Jesus is a divine person with two natures. Divine nature and human nature. So here's the aftermath. The aftermath is that it preserved the unity of Christ's person, one subject, right? Not two acting in parallel. Okay. There's a such a thing as the human Jesus and the divine Jesus. It's just one Jesus Christ, the Son of God, with two natures. So those who supported Nestorius, they got exiled, right? They got exiled. But the Persians took them in. All right, why? Let's get back to the map, huh? So here's the map. Western Roman Empire, Eastern Roman Empire. Okay. This is 431. So this is where the Persians are, correct? And Christianity spreads to Persia. Then the Persian king is saying, all right, the Parthians guys, they are saying, why is this religion? Now, what is the official religion of this place? Zoroastrianism, right? Zoroastrianism, fire god, right? Okay, so that is the religion of here, Zoroastrianism. So as Christianity spreads here, it's a foreign religion, isn't it? And when Christianity was everywhere, persecuted everywhere. But then when the Roman Empire under Theodosius recognizes Christianity as the official religion of Rome, okay, then Christians are in trouble. Our official religion was Zoroastrianism. The official religion here was paganism, right? Worship Jupiter, Zeus, whatever. Then now overnight, this place all become official religion is Christianity. And then now the emperor is calling council meetings to define what Christian doctrine is. So Christian doctrine is defined under the auspices of the Roman Empire. And then you guys here are Christians. Are you Romans or are you Parthians? Are you traitors or what are you? Right? You're agents of foreign religion. Right? Now, whatever the emperor in Constantinople says is Christian doctrine now becomes your doctrine of your becomes your religion. Right? So they felt threatened. You see? And so there's going to be a fresh round of persecution of Christians here simply because this part become Christian. Does that make sense? Makes sense, right? So when the Roman Empire become Christian, then the Parthians here, right, the Persians here, right, were like, okay, so now well, they're Christians here as well. So now Christianity has become a Roman religion. It's the religion of this empire. Our religion is Zoroastrian. If you become Christians here, are you more is your allegiance more towards Rome or towards us? Does that make sense? Okay. So, happily for the Christians here, Nestorius and his gang got exiled. Out when you get exiled out of the empire lah. So they went eastward. When they go eastward, the Persian church accepted them wholeheartedly and said, now we are different from the Roman church. Right? So now they can tell their Persian king, right, that we got nothing to do with the Roman Empire at all. We are our own religion. We don't even have the same creed. Huh? The consequence of that is the first split. The Church of the East, or the Assyrian Church, splits away, accepts Nestorianism. So within the empire, it is Nicene Creed, okay, and Cyril of Alexandria, hypostatic union, and then Church of the East, prosopic union. It is still very much observed by Assyrian Christians today. Of course, many of them are in Iraq, Afghanistan. So many of them were persecuted by ISIS. I think its present headquarters is in Australia. Yeah. So there's a lot of Assyrian Christians in Australia. So they exist until today. These Nestorians. Bearer of Christ, bearer of Christ. Yeah. 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 Assyrian Church, Assyrian Church. No. Assyrian Church of the East. Assyrian Church of the East. Yeah, here's the website. Assyrian Church. Oh, this is the United States. Assyrian Church of the East. Yeah, this guy. The Assyrian Church of the East. Yep. What we believe. Yeah. Nestorianism. Uh, no, they're not. I don't think we have Assyrian Church here. Assyrian Church of the East, headquartered in Erbil, yeah. Headquartered in Erbil. Sometimes called Holy Apostolic Catholic Assyrian Church of the East. Okay. Officially headquartered in Erbil. Yeah. Iraq. Iraq. History. Church of the East. Yeah. Is there like Nestor? Can we find like Nestor? Yeah, 6th century Nestorian church. Mark Elias, the Nestorian bishop. Yeah, Nestorian. Yeah, Nestorians ah. Elements of Nestorian doctrine were explicit repudiated by their Pope, Pope Dinka the Fourth, in 1976. So only in 1976 they stopped being Nestorian, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't follow up with them since this in church history, 1976 is quite recent. So I'm surprised. I didn't know this. Whenever I hear the Assyrian Church of the East, Nestorian, yeah. But is it all of Nestorianism or just parts of Nestorianism that got repudiated by their leader? I don't know. I don't know. I'm reading it real time with you. Yeah. For me, they're always Nestorian. If they've changed, then not sure. Okay. So the exists one, the exists one. So we're not talking about just history, we're talking about today. Yeah. So this is the first group that left the imperial church to become Nestorians. Because Persian right? They wanted a different creed. They don't want it to be under Constantinople, right? You got to report your bishop comes under the emperor of Eastern Roman Empire. How can? All right. So here's the last one. Council of Chalcedon. So Council of Chalcedon, what happened was that this guy by the name of Eutychus, he had a strong reaction against Nestorian. So when Nestorian says there's two persons, that is Jesus Christ, he says not only is there one person that is Jesus Christ has a single nature. Yes, there's divinity and humanity, but the humanity is like a drop of honey in an ocean of divinity. So it's kind of get absorbed or dissolved into his divinity. So really, Jesus is just divine, all right? Or if you want to say that a drop of honey into the ocean does change the ocean anyways, all right? So then it is more like a blended nature kind of a thing, right? Whereas the church, the Council of Ephesus says that we must not confuse them, right? We must not divide them, we must not confuse them. Confuse means literally fusing together, right? Confuse means to fuse together. Things that shouldn't be fused together, right? So without confusion. So the church again came together at 451 at Chalcedon and come to say that Jesus is one person, two nature, one and the same Son. So the person is the Son. That means it's a divine person, right? The person is Son of God. And with two natures, 4 clauses to what it means to two natures, without confusion, without change, without division, without separation. All right. So now this is the most updated language to talk about the divinity and the humanity of Christ. The two natures, his divine nature and his human nature, cannot be confused. They do not change. You don't divide them. You do not separate them. Yeah. And the aftermath will be like people say the Chalcedon is too much like the Nestorians. Because the two nature sounds like two persons to them. Say, what is the real difference between two persons and two natures? Right? Just two. No, they should be combined. So those who say it is combined, all right, are the Miaphysites. They rejected the Chalcedon. That is basically the Church of Alexandria left the imperial church. So the Church of Alexandria left and said, we're going home with our toys. So the Coptics, the Armenians, the Ethiopian Orthodox, now together they form what is called the Oriental Orthodox Churches. Okay, so there is the Assyrian Church of the East, there's the Nestorians, and then there's a latest exodus is the Oriental Orthodox Churches, not the Eastern Orthodox, the Oriental Orthodox. Yeah. So they took with them um, they took with them Alexandria, Jerusalem, and Antioch. So now the imperial church left only two, Rome and Constantinople. Not yet, 451. I mean, yeah. Rome, yes. But the church, the patriarchate is still there, right? So yeah, right. The imperial church is basically the Eastern Orthodox Church, right? Whereas in the West, it's kind of like disintegrating. But it's still there. It is still there, right? It is still part of the Western Roman Empire. But so now there's just two left. That is Chalcedonian. So Chalcedonian Christians is Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox. All right. So the Coptics are Nicenian but non-Chalcedonian. Okay. So we Protestants are from the West, Western Catholic. So we are Chalcedonian. So Catholic Protestants, the Western Church, are Chalcedonian, and Eastern Orthodox Church, the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, right? They are Chalcedonian, and then Alexandria, Jerusalem, Antioch. These are non-Chalcedonians. The non-Chalcedonians from the Oriental Orthodox churches. Yeah, the taiko is Coptic lah. The Egyptian church. One person, two natures. Yeah. Yeah. This is yeah. One person, two natures. Yeah. The natures are not blended without confusion. Yeah. Blending means confusing means to blend them. So the Miaphysites kind of blended the nature into one nature. So it's not God nature, it's not human nature, it's a God man nature, something like that lah. Okay. Miaphysites. Yeah. So this is what the non-Chalcedonians would hold. The non-Chalcedonians are the Oriental Orthodox churches. The Assyrian Church of the East is irrelevant. They were not party to the. They were not there at the debate because they left at Ephesus. No, yeah. The Church of the East, the Nestorians, they already left in 431. All right, this is 451. 20 years later, so they're not even party. So they're neither Chalcedonian nor non-Chalcedonian. It is irrelevant to them. That wasn't their debate at all. They went off to do their own thing in Persia. Yeah, the Chalcedonians, yes. Okay, so I have presented 4 councils. All right, Nicaea, Constantinople, Ephesus, and Chalcedon. Altogether, there are 7 ecumenical councils. Okay, but many Protestants do not recognize 567. So most, probably all Protestant denominations accept 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I just did to Ephesus. The Nestorian. Yeah. So most Protestant Christians accept at least 4. Okay. The first 4, Nicaea, Constantinople, Ephesus, and Chalcedon. Recognizes binding. That's why I say most Protestant churches. All right. For councils. All right. Yeah. Some Protestant would take all 7. Yeah, the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox, they will take all 7. Yeah, because all these things happen before 1054. Yeah. So before they to split. After they split, then they have their own councils. They have their own councils that they don't recognize each other. Okay. Sidon? You have to look it up in the map. I can't share a map right here. Yeah. Okay. Next time when we come back, so Western Roman Empire has collapsed. So that gives rise to the medieval church. All right. Whereby it's no longer one unified empire of the West. It is now broken into um, um, various principalities, okay, and local kings and kingdoms and cities. So that gives rise to the medieval church in the West. In the East, it is still not yet the medieval church because the empire is still there. All right, the emperor is still there in the East, but in the West, so that gives rise to the papacy. Because now in the West, Rome is the church in Rome is the only authority left that can hold the whole West together. You understand? The civil government cannot hold because there's no centralized civil government anymore. Right? So the only thing that is centralized is religion. So therefore, the growth in importance of the papacy. All right. So that's what we're going to look at the next time, 10th of May.